February 15, 1965, New York City, Audubon Ballroom, 2:47 p.m. The ballroom smelled of old wood, furniture polish, and nervous sweat. Hundreds packed the seats, men in suits, women in Sunday dresses, children on laps. Malcolm X stood backstage, adjusting his tie in a cracked mirror. His face was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of too many death threats. He'd already survived firebombs, shotgun blasts, and poison attempts. Today felt no different. Yet something in the air felt heavier. Outside the side entrance, Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson leaned against a brick wall, fedora low, cigarette burning slow between his fingers. He wore a charcoal suit, no tie, collar open. To most passers-by, he looked like any other Harlem man waiting for a friend, but his eyes never stopped moving, scanning faces, hands, coats, exits. 4 of his men stood nearby, spaced out, blending into the crowd gathering for the rally. Illinois Gordon, big as a doorway, pretended to read a newspaper across the street. Victor Gold Malone leaned against a parked car, arms crossed, watching the sidewalk. Red and Jimmy Teeth flanked the alley. No guns visible, no threats spoken, just presence. Bumpy crushed his cigarette under his heel, looked at his watch. Then at the side door where Malcolm would enter. He'd known Malcolm for years. Not close friends, Bumpy didn't do close, but mutual respect. Malcolm preached self-reliance, dignity, black power. Bumpy lived it in the streets. They'd cross paths in Harlem clubs, at fundraisers, on stoops. Malcolm once called Bumpy a necessary evil in an evil system. Bumpy just smiled and said, "Evil keeps the wolves off the door, brother." 3 weeks earlier, word reached Bumpy through his network. Bartenders, numbers runners, cab drivers, janitors. A contract, $10,000. Kill Malcolm X at the Audubon. The hit wasn't from the Nation of Islam alone. It was bigger. FBI whispers, CIA shadows, local police looking the other way. Multiple hands wanted Malcolm gone. Bumpy didn't tell Malcolm. Malcolm would have refused protection, pride, principle, faith in Allah. So Bumpy did what he always did. He moved quiet. No announcement, no request for thanks, just action. He'd told his men one thing the night before. Malcolm walks in, Malcolm speaks, Malcolm walks out. Anyone tries anything, we end it before it starts. No bodies in the ballroom if we can help it, but if it comes to that, we protect the brother, understand? They understood. Now the doors opened. Malcolm stepped out, tall, sharp suit, glasses, no fear in his stride. The crowd inside rose. Applause rolled like thunder. Bumpy pushed off the wall, nodded once to Illinois. Illinois folded the newspaper. Victor straightened. Red and Jimmy moved closer to the entrance. Malcolm paused at the door, looked out at the street. For a split second, his eyes met Bumpy's across the sidewalk. No words, no nod, just recognition. Malcolm gave the smallest smile, barely there, then turned and walked inside. Bumpy exhaled slow, lit another cigarette. He spoke low to no one and everyone. Today, nothing happens to him, not on my watch. Inside, Malcolm took the stage, voice strong, words sharp. The crowd leaned in. Outside, Bumpy's men watched every face that entered, every hand in a coat pocket, every nervous glance. The clock ticked toward 3:03 p.m., and somewhere in the crowd, 3 men waited with knives and pistols, thinking they were invisible. They weren't. Bumpy knew their faces, knew their names, knew their plan, and he was already 3 steps ahead. The rally began, but the real security detail, it was Bumpy Johnson. The one history books never mentioned. It stood outside in the cold, smoking cigarettes, watching the door, ready to kill or die for a man who never asked them to. And the day was just starting. February 15th, 1965, Audubon Ballroom, 3:02 p.m. Malcolm X stepped to the microphone. The room hushed like a held breath. His voice filled Ogni Corner, deep, measured, cutting. Assalamu alaikum. The crowd answered back, warm and unified. Bumpy Johnson stayed outside. He didn't need to hear the speech. He'd heard Malcolm speak before. What mattered now was the room Malcolm couldn't see, the hands he couldn't watch. Inside the ballroom, Trey Womany sat scattered among the audience. Tommy Hagen, nervous, sweating under his coat. Norman 3X Butler, calm, eyes forward. Thomas 15X Johnson, hands in pockets, fingering the handle of a sawed-off shotgun hidden inside his jacket. They'd been waiting for this moment for months. The plan was simple: disrupt, distract, kill. A staged argument would start in the front rows. Someone would yell, "Get your hand out of my pocket." Malcolm would pause. The crowd would turn. Then the shotgun would rise. They didn't know Quattro Altri Womany had already marked them. Illinois Gordon sat 3 rows behind Tommy Hagen. Victor Malone stood at the rear exit, coat open, hand near his .22. Red waited in the balcony, overlooking the crowd like a hawk. Jimmy Teeth near the side door, ready to block Ogni escape. Bumpy stepped inside quietly, slipped into a seat near the back, blended, watched. At 3:03, the argument started, right on cue. A man in the front stood up. "Get your hand out my pocket, man." Malcolm raised a hand. Brothers, calm down." The room shifted, heads turned. Tommy Hagen rose, shouted, "Don't be messing with my pockets." The distraction worked, for most, not for Bumpy's men. Illinois stood first, moved fast for his size, grabbed Tommy Hagen's arm before the man could reach inside his coat. Tommy spun, eyes wide. "Who the—" Illinois' voice low thunder. "Sit down, now." Tommy froze, felt the iron grip, knew who he was. Across the room, Victor stepped toward Norman 3X Butler, hand inside coat. Norman saw him coming, hand twitched toward his pocket. Victor spoke soft, only loud enough for Norman. "Don't." Norman's hand stopped. Red dropped from the balcony stairs, quiet, fast, blocked Thomas 15X Johnson's row. Jimmy Teeth moved to the side door, cut off retreat. The crowd murmured. Confusion rippled. Malcolm paused mid-sentence, looked out over the audience. For a heartbeat, the room held. Then Bumpy stood, slow, deliberate. He walked down the center aisle, fedora low, hands empty. Every eye followed him. Malcolm saw him, recognized him, didn't speak. Bumpy stopped at the front row, looked at the 3 men, now surrounded, frozen. He spoke, voice carrying clear, calm. "Brothers, this ain't the day." Tommy Hagen swallowed. Norman's hand dropped from his pocket. Thomas 15X Johnson sat back down, slow. Bumpy looked up at Malcolm. Malcolm gave the smallest nod, continued speaking. The argument died. The crowd settled. No shotgun rose, no shots fired. Bumpy turned, walked back up the aisle, past his men. Illinois released Tommy. Victor stepped back. Red and Jimmy melted into the crowd. Bumpy reached the back door, paused, looked once more at Malcolm on stage. Malcolm met his eyes again, no words needed. Bumpy stepped outside, lit another cigarette. The rally continued. Malcolm spoke for another hour, stronger than ever. When it ended, he walked off stage. Safe. Bumpy's men waited outside. Illinois approached first. "All clear, boss." Bumpy nodded, exhaled smoke. "Good." He looked at the ballroom doors. "They'll try again, soon." Victor stepped up. "What now?" Bumpy crushed the cigarette. "We keep watching, until the job's done." The day wasn't over, but Malcolm X lived to speak another day, because one man in Harlem decided history books wouldn't write his death. Augie, February 15th, 1965. Audubon Ballroom, 4:45 p.m. Malcolm X finished his speech strong. The crowd rose, applause rolling like waves. He stepped off the stage, sweat on his brow, but eyes bright. Security, his own Fruit of Islam detail, closed ranks around him quick. They moved him toward the side exit, routine tight. But Malcolm paused. He looked back at the audience, then toward the back doors. He saw Bumpy Johnson standing near the rear exit, fedora low, hands in pockets, cigarette smoke curling. Their eyes met again. Questo volta più a lungo. Malcolm gave a single, slow nod. Bumpy returned it. Then Malcolm turned, continued out the side door with his men. Outside, the February cold bit hard. Malcolm's detail hustled him toward the waiting car, black Cadillac, engine running. Bumpy stepped out last. His men fell in behind. They just formed a loose perimeter, watching the street. One of Malcolm's security men, tall, stern, bow tie, noticed them, frowned, stepped forward. "Who are you people?" Illinois moved first, big frame blocking the wind. "We're friends of the brother," Illinois said low, "making sure he gets home safe." The man looked them over, suits sharp, eyes harder. Recognized the Harlem street look, then looked past them to Bumpy. Bumpy stepped forward, hands still in pockets. "Tell Malcolm we got his back, Augie. Tell him Harlem don't let wolves near the shepherd." The security man hesitated, then nodding once, turned back to Malcolm. Malcolm, already in the car doorway, paused, looked at Bumpy across the sidewalk. No words crossed the distance, just understanding. Malcolm got in the car. Door closed. The Cadillac pulled away slow. Bumpy watched it disappear down the block. Illinois stepped beside him. "They almost got him, boss. Trey Womany, armed, ready." Bumpy lit another cigarette, inhaled deep. Almost ain't the same as did. Victor approached, voice low. "We got names. Tommy Hagan, Norman 3X Butler, Thomas 15X Johnson. They scattered when we moved, but they'll talk or run." Bumpy exhaled smoke into the cold air. "Let 'em run. Let 'em talk. The message is sent." He crushed the cigarette. "Tell the boys, buon lavoro oggi. No blood, no noise, just presence." Red nodding. Jimmy teeth grinned small. Illinois looked at Bumpy. "You think they'll try again?" Bumpy stared down the empty street. "Soon, they always do. But next time, we'll be closer." They walked back toward Harlem, quiet together. No celebration. Inside the Cadillac, Malcolm leaned back, closed his eyes. His security man spoke up. "Those men outside, the one in the fedora. He said Harlem's got your back." Malcolm opened his eyes. "I know who he is." Pause. "And I know quello che ha fatto oggi." The car rolled on. Malcolm whispered, "Thank you, brother." The day ended quiet. Ma il shadow detail, the one history never named. It stayed, watching, waiting, because February 15th, 1965, Malcolm X lived, because Bumpy Johnson decided he would. Bumpy didn't disband his men. He tightened the watch. Every morning at dawn, Victor Malone and Red checked the streets around Malcolm's house in Queens. Illinois Gordon drove slow past the Audubon. Jimmy Teeth worked the numbers spots. They didn't follow Malcolm inside meetings. That would have crossed lines. Bumpy's crew stayed outer ring, unseen, but always there. Word came back fast. The TRA Womany from the rally scattered. But Bumpy knew Meglio. They weren't done. February 18th, late night. A payphone rang in Small's Paradise back office. Bumpy answered. A voice, low, distorted. "Johnson, this ain't over. Malcolm's time is coming. You can't watch him forever." Bumpy hung up, lit a cigarette. He called Victor. "Double the eyes. They're testing us." Victor didn't ask why, just moved. February 19th, Queens, Malcolm's home. Victor parked 2 blocks away, saw a dark sedan cruise slow past the house, twice. Terza volta, he stepped into the street, blocked the path. The driver stopped. Window rolled down, a white face, nervous. Victor leaned in. Wrong neighborhood. The car reversed fast, disappeared. Victor called Bumpy. Handled. February 21st. Audubon Ballroom again, another rally. Malcolm arrived presto, security tight. Bumpy's men were already in place. Illinois near the front, Victor at the rear, Red in the balcony, Jimmy near the side exit. Bumpy stood outside. Malcolm stepped to the stage. Brothers and sisters. Then, 3:03 p.m., the argument started again. Same script. Get your hand out my pocket. Crowd turned. Ma questo volta. Bumpy's men moved faster. Illinois stood, grabbed the shouter's arm. Victor blocked the aisle. Red dropped down. Jimmy sealed the door. He raised a hand. Peace, brothers. Let us continue. The shouter sat, shaking. No shotgun rose, no shots. Malcolm finished the speech, walked off stage, safe. Again. Outside, Bumpy waited. Malcolm emerged with his detail. This time he stopped, walked straight to Bumpy. The two women stood face to face, Malcolm tall, Bumpy shorter, but unbowed. Malcolm spoke first, quiet. I know what you did, both days. Bumpy nodded once. Malcolm continued. I don't ask for protection, but I recognize it when it comes. Bumpy exhaled smoke. Harlem don't let its own fall, not while I breathe. Malcolm looked at him long. Thank you, Ellsworth. Bumpy smiled small, rare. Keep speaking truth, brother. We'll keep the wolves back. Malcolm nodded, then turned, got in the car, drove away. Bumpy watched until the taillights vanished. Illinois stepped up. Boss, he knows. Bumpy crushed the cigarette. He always knew. He looked at his men. Keep watching until it's done. They nodded. The days stretched. The threats continued. But Malcolm lived a few more days because of a secret detail. One man in Harlem and Quattro shadows who never asked for credit. Only results. February 21st, 1965. Audubon Ballroom, 3:03 p.m. The rally was packed tighter than the week before. Inside, the speech flowed. Then it started again. Same script. Get your hand out my pocket. Crowd turned. Ma Bumpy's men moved like they'd rehearsed it 100 times. Illinois rose. Victor stepped forward. Red dropped from the balcony. Jimmy sealed the side door. The room froze. Malcolm paused mid-sentence, saw the movement, saw Bumpy's men, calm, controlled. He raised both hands. Brothers, sisters, be seated. Let peace prevail. The shouter sat, shaking. Norman's hand stayed out of his pocket. Thomas lowered his head. No shotgun rose, no shots. Malcolm continued, stronger. The crowd settled. The speech finished. Applause thundered. Malcolm stepped off stage, safe. Again. Outside, Bumpy waited. Malcolm walked straight to him. I know it was you. Both Sundays. Bumpy nodded once. You didn't have to, Malcolm said. Bumpy exhaled smoke. Your men are good, but Harlem sees things they don't. We see the wolves before they bare teeth. Malcolm looked at him long. You risked your name. For me. Bumpy met his eyes. Not for you, for Harlem. If they silence you, they silence us all. Malcolm's voice softened. I won't forget this, Ellsworth. Bumpy smiled small. Keep speaking truth, Malcolm. We'll keep the door open. Malcolm extended his hand. Bumpy took it. Malcolm turned, got in the car, drove away. Bumpy watched the taillights fade. He always knew. Stay sharp. This ain't over. The threats kept coming, but Malcolm lived those final days because of Quattro shadows, because of one man in Harlem who decided, not Augie, not on my streets. February 21st, 1965, and the silence that followed. Malcolm X lived those last hours. He spoke truth one more time. He walked off that stage, got into his car, drove away. Bumpy Johnson watched from the sidewalk until the taillights vanished into the Harlem dusk. His men stood around him. They'd done what needed doing. Bumpy lit one last cigarette, inhaled deep, exhaled slow into the cold air. Illinois stepped closer. Boss, you think he knows how close it was? Bumpy looked at the ballroom doors. Empty now, lights dimming. He knows enough. That's all that matters. Victor spoke low. We'll keep the watch. They'll try again. Bumpy nodded once. We stay ready. Until it's done. They walked back toward Harlem, together, silent. No parade, no Thanksgiving, none asked. The next morning, February 22nd, Bumpy sat in the back booth at Small's Paradise. Coffee black, newspaper open but unread. A young runner slipped in, handed him a folded note. No name, just handwriting Malcolm would recognize. Bumpy opened it. Inside, one line. Thank you for the shadow, brother. Malcolm. Bumpy read it twice, folded it, tucked it inside his coat, next to his heart. He never showed it to anyone, never spoke of it, but he kept it. The days turned to weeks. The threats never stopped. Bumpy's details stayed. Outer ring, unseen, watching streets, checking cars, listening to whispers. Then, February 21st became history. Malcolm X was assassinated at the Audubon Ballroom. Gunshots, chaos, a life cut short. Bumpy was in Harlem when the news hit. Small's Paradise went quiet. Men lowered lower heads. Women cried soft. Bumpy didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the stage where jazz used to play. Illinois approached, voice thick. We were there last week, boss. We stopped it then. Bumpy nodded slow. We did what we could, when we could. He stood, buttoned his coat. Tell the boys, we keep watching, not for him now, for what he left behind. The voice, the message. Harlem, don't forget. Illinois nodded. Bumpy walked outside, lit a cigarette, looked up at the Harlem sky, gray, heavy. He whispered to no one. Rest easy, brother. We got the rest. The shadow detail never disbanded. Not really. It just changed shape. Bumpy's men protected the message, quietly, in the streets, in the numbers spots, in the kids who grew up hearing Malcolm's words. Victor kept the watch longest. Even after Bumpy passed in '68, he walked those same blocks, watched those same corners, made sure the wolves stayed back. Years later, in the 2000s, an old man sat on a stoop in Harlem. White hair, gold pouch empty but still carried. A young activist approached. You were there, with Bumpy, the day Malcolm spoke last. They say you stopped something. Victor looked at the street, smiled small. We just watched. That's all, the young man pressed. Why? Malcolm wasn't your fight. Victor exhaled slow. His fight was Harlem's fight. When you silence one voice, you try to silence us all. Bumpy taught me that. We didn't let it happen. Not that day. The young man nodded, walked away. Victor stayed on the stoop, watched the children play. The history books never mentioned the shadow detail, never named the men in fedoras and dark coats who stood outside, never spoke of the cigarettes smoked in the cold, the eyes that never blinked. But Harlem remembered. In Ogni Rally, Ogni March, Ogni kid who stood tall and spoke truth, they remembered, because one man in Harlem, and Quattro Shadows decided not Augie. And that echo, it still rings, loud, clear, the end.